This is the unlucky story of how an elite professional skateboarder at the Berrics earned the worst stat in flat ground contest history, and how that stat is a reflection of the downfall of the Berrics itself. The Berrics was home to the skateboarding industry's most prestigious set of private indoor skate parks from roughly 2010 to 2020. And to this day, the company has a YouTube channel with 1.5 million subscribers and an Instagram page with nearly 3 million followers. Footage of top pros ripping the parks were welcomingly embraced by fans during that time, but the Berrics' prominently front-facing founders, Steve Berra and Eric Costin, have since collectively suffered a much more negative reputation that contrasts in comparison to the company's booming pre-2020 golden era. With the steady rise of social media over the years, candid stories about the misleading methods Steve Berra used to conduct business.
I had plain sight put a ring cam that would record and everything, audio and video, so if anybody ever went into the studio, I can see if anybody messed with my gear. Every time Berra had any of his famous friends or high-profile friends or associates, he would go and parade that. It was a well-built studio. It was, pretty top-notch, and everybody he showed it to was always blown away. Always show it off, never once mentioned me.
Listen,
I just said that.
I'm the fucking guy here who makes all the decisions.
Did you hear how he said, I'm the boss here, I make all the decisions? Back in 2021, if you guys remember, I made a little video explaining that they took me off the bracket. And Berra reached out to me. He got my number for someone, and he FaceTimed me when I was in New Jersey. He basically just tells me, I'm always in Chicago. I don't make the decisions over there as much anymore. He's basically he was putting the blame on other people. He just portrays himself as this really nice guy, and everyone attacks him. And at the end of the phone call, he was like, I still want you in Battle of the Barracks. I text him after. I'm like, if you put my homie Mowgli in the bracket, I'm down. Because they still needed 2 more spots or some shit, because they put people on the bracket that didn't even want to be in it, like Aaron Cairo and all them. He was like, let's do it, me and Mowgli. And that never happened.
I always know when you post a video because I get about 1,000 death threats / kill yourself messages immediately after. If you're not familiar with Steve's rants, let me just show you this one. After the Sean Davis situation, after last Sunday, you would have thought Sean was ISIS, the Taliban, Hitler, and Dahmer, all wrapped up in one.
I've never seen a fucking company do what DC did. Never. Not fucking once. Never. Never ever. Never ever. Did they kick? No, they didn't kick Danny Way off the team because Danny Way is actually one of the guys who fucking kicked these guys off the team. Just so you know.
While being associated with Scientology, a group notorious for its wallet-draining membership costs, as well as egregiously corporate sponsorship and monetization efforts, all contributed to the downward spiraling public perception of Berra and Costin's company. On top of this, the simultaneous occurrence of the decline of skateboarding's overall popularity post-2020, paired with the rising rent costs in Southern California's high cost of living region, led to the closure of the Berrics' final and biggest indoor LA skate park in late 2023. The Berrics monetized the actual closure of the park by selling autographed chunks of the demolished epoxy-covered cement obstacles through Mike Moe's ABD Collectibles company, which, along with the Berrics website, indicates it is currently on a hiatus. In May 2025, roughly a year and a half after the Berrics closed their last skate park, a hard post on their Instagram implied they're going to open a new skate plaza near Mount Fuji in Japan. Apart from that, the Berrics' existence, on the internet at least, has mostly been reposting original skateboarding clips to their massive Instagram account, and publishing a handful of video parts on their YouTube channel after sponsoring the last King and Queen of Machba contests. Are the Berrics calling it quits on the US market and trying to relive what they achieved in America through a Japanese reboot where the skate hype is relatively higher? What's up with the DVS brand resurgence? Will there ever be another Battle at the Berrics? If you've been watching this channel over the last few years, then it should come as no surprise that this particular video is about the Berrics' most successful, popular, entertaining, and longest running series, the Battle at the Berrics. To be specific, we're going to talk about Trent McClung, the owner of the lowest ever ELO score out of any competitor in the flat ground contest, and why poor management of the Berrics' most successful event led to one of skateboarding's most coveted indoor skate parks' demolition. Crash course on ELO is that it's a numerical score assigned to every barracks competitor before and after a game that calculates a relative skill level of all the skaters, and was invented in the 1960s by a physics professor and chess master Arpid Elo. Trent McClung. He's the youngest of 3 McClung men who have exceptionally high skill levels on a skateboard. Trent is a professional skateboarder riding for Primitive at the time of this edit. He's put out several video parts. He's competed in a lot of high-profile contests like Tampa, CPH Open, X Games, Dew Tour, and SLS, with his best ever showing there being 5th place back in 2018. The youngest McClung's style on a board is very relaxed, smooth. He's ambidextrous in all stances with flip tricks and ledges. He's essentially a textbook example of a clean, SoCal-bred, skate park-trained professional skateboarder. Nothing out of this world in terms of creativity in his skating or having a marketable personality, but he's stacked footage in his prime, is very consistent, and comes across as a genuinely polite and nice individual. Without knowing him personally, at his peak in the late 2010s, I would classify him as the most average, top-tier professional skateboarder in existence. And if you're not paying close enough attention, sometimes he can even be confused with other skaters on Primitive like Carlos Ribeiro. Regardless, Trent is a pro and somehow has the lowest all-time ELO score out of all 225 skaters to ever compete at the Berrics. How is that possible? Especially when you have one-and-done guys like Burberry Airy, or guys that have shown up 3 times and lost their first game 3 times like Johnny Geiger. Answering that question requires us to look at Trent's journey through the tournament and how it compares to everyone else's. Let's rewind to 2012 for Chapter 1, Bright Beginnings. Trent McClung's first Berrics match was a victory in Season 5 against Sean Malto, who had 0 wins and 2 losses on his Berrics resume. So Trent's triumph against a 2-time loser did not catapult his ELO score, but it did hand him 53 points for winning his rookie debut game. The game itself was a decent back and forth, front-loaded by Trent picking apart Sean to letter T, and McClung ultimately showed a lot of promise with competitive flat ground after applying a bigger spin death blow to end Malto's Season 5 itinerary. Hopefully McClung faces a scrub in Chapter 2, not the end of the world. Beating Malto put Trent against PJ in round 2 of Season 5, which, in my opinion, is arguably the best game not only from that season, but is probably one of the most underrated games in Berrics history. This 100-turn marathon of a game allowed for Trent's clutch defense to shine on a last-try nollie bigger flip and switch backside heel before losing on a fakey bigger flip. Trent actually ended up getting skunked in this game, losing without giving his opponent a single letter, and I think that's why such a long game like this one gets overlooked in hindsight. But McClung put in the work on offense, setting 24 tricks, 1 more than PJ did. It's just that PJ was peak PJ in Season 5, and could not miss, going 100% perfect on defense, including a nollie late flip. Suffering a crushing defeat, a now 1-for-1 McClung was done in Season 5, and his ELO dropped 72 points to dip below his default rookie score of 1,000. Hoping to bounce back in the 6th season, Trent had the unlucky assignment of facing one of competitive skateboarding's hungriest and most lethal figures, Nyjah Huston, in what wound up being a close game with a 2-letter margin of victory, but unfortunately, Trent lost, dipping his ELO further by 53 points. At this point, Trent just experienced a sophomore slump, unable to scrounge up a round 1 win like he did in his debut Season 5, now carrying 1 win and 2 losses on his record. But this was nothing out of the ordinary, and there's always next season. You can't win them all, so Trent sets his sights on Chapter 3, Bad Timing, Worse Luck. Just when you would think the stars align and Trent gets blessed with an evenly matched first game heading into Season 7, he is forced to go toe-to-toe with a highly touted, double-flipping rookie that flew into Los Angeles from the Midwest, Michigan's own Cody Cepeda. Trent actually looked like he was going to blank Cody, setting a hefty workload of 33 consecutive tricks on his opening offensive rally and punishing Cepeda with 4 letters before turning over possession after suspiciously missing a switch varial heel flip instead of throwing out a bigger spin like he did against Malto. Cody quickly turned the tables and lashed out with double flip variations, and while I don't think there's an overwhelming amount of evidence to show Trent sold his game, I would argue that he did not do much, if anything, to prevent himself from stepping off of the switch laser. Had he literally tic-tacked 45 degrees, he rolls away. Trent's nollie frontside double flip death blow attempts did not seem like purely honest efforts either. His first attempt looked like when a pro tries to pretend they're a beginner as a joke, but it's so obvious they're good enough in this case to land the trick that McClung had to try to avoid landing bolts. The preseason hype around Cody back then, how much the $25,000 first place cash prize would change an unknown aspiring pro skater's life, and Berra's eyes burning a hole in Cepeda's back to stay alive in the game, just kind of smells like the end result was rigged for the Joe in this scenario, considering Trent's offensive dominance earlier before casually bailing a switch varial heel. But regardless, McClung lost, suffering a 30-point ELO deduction. Losing twice in a row means Trent has a fire lit under him in Chapter 4, a chance at redemption. With a pair of back-to-back one-and-done seasons, 6 and 7 in the rear view, Trent's ELO dipped below 900, a concerningly low score that only 8% of Berrics competitors have achieved. But what takes place for Trent in Season 8 did not help him claw his way back out of ELO hell. Chicago's Chaz Ortiz faced Trent in the 8th season's first round, which meant McClung was finally gifted the first winnable matchup since Season 5 against Malto. In fact, Chaz's ELO was also below 900, lower than McClung's by about 6 points, because Ortiz was coming off a skunked loss to Will Fyock in the first game of Season 7, and had a Round 2 loss from Moose back in Season 6. This pregame matchup between Chaz and Trent can be considered the least competitive in terms of lowest combined pregame ELO scores, totaling 1785. For context, Jamie Griffin's own ELO score is almost the same as these two guys' ELOs combined. It's the only Berrics game in history where both competitors had 2 or more consecutive losses leading up to their next game. Similar to all of his other matches, Trent did not skate particularly poorly against Chaz. He landed 27 tricks. It's just that Ortiz skated a little better and beat him by 3 letters, dropping McClung's score another 75 points, down to the lowest recorded minimum ELO score ever at that point. The good thing about rock bottom is that Trent only goes up in Chapter 5. It can always be worse. McClung accepts the Berrics invite to return to Season 10. And is now in a must-win situation no matter who he's facing, if he wants to avoid risking even more damage to his ELO and a 5th consecutive loss. Uncharted territory for anyone with Berrics contest experience. Unfortunately, the matchup was the most lopsided of any of Trent's games in the tournament, thanks to Moose, who won 80% of his 5 Round 1 games. And the only loss from that Round 1 record is from Season 5 when Moose faced the returning Season 4 champ, Morgan Smith. Trent pulled up to the Berrics with his 2 brothers, and Moose pulled up to the Berrics with half of the city of Oxnard to watch the game.
I gotta yell right now to talk to you. It's like we're at the club.
Yeah, I kind of my fault.
No, oh, these are your people? Oh, okay, so you brought your crew.
I came a little deep.
A foreboding sign of who was more invested in the outcome of this match. Trent went first, and the game progressed in a fun, letter-for-letter dogfight, but McClung got Moose to tee first, a favorable position for Trent. Moose, however, wasn't about to let his Ventura County squad down, and clutched an inward heel to avoid letter E, then proceeded to capitalize on McClung's pair of missed offensive switch inward heels by shutting down the game with a nollie double kickflip. Since McClung's 819 pregame score was so low and Moose's 1162 was so high, Trent only lost 6 points after this game, but it was this game's outcome that etched the lowest ever ELO score recorded into the history books. One can only imagine how quiet that ride home from the Berrics must have been back to the McClung compound, with Trent realizing he's the owner of the worst stat in competitive flat ground lore. Please tell me Trent is okay in Chapter 6. Could it be true? The good news is that Trent finally got another victory in season 11 when he played John DiLorenzo, but Tom Asta halted any progression in round 2, giving Trent his 6th loss. So after going through Trent's 5-game losing streak, him having the lowest ever ELO is technically because he is one of only 2 people in Berrics history to lose 5 games in a row. Carlos Ribeiro is the only other skater with 5 consecutive losses suffered at the Berrics. But Trent's matchups in relation to Ribeiro's were not as lopsided, and unfortunately, someone has to be the owner of the lowest ELO, which just so happens to be the youngest McClung brother. The less technical and more subjective side of why Trent has the lowest ELO is derived from the competitor's sentiment about the contest itself. There are 2 clearly defined and different schools of thought from people that get invited to skate flat at the Berrics. You've got guys like Jamie, Seva, Luan, Jocelyn, P-Rod, and Nija, to name a few, who actually care about trying to compete and skate well. Then you've got dudes like Costin, Geiger, Andy Anderson, Chris Roberts, and to some extent Billy Marks on the complete opposite end, who could not give less of a fuck about trying to compete, which always confused me, but more so annoyed the hell out of me when I'm anticipating a solid game. I would not necessarily group Trent or Carlos with those guys who don't care at all about trying to win, but you would think that after maybe the 3rd straight loss, maybe when I get invited back, it's time to throw out a circus trick or at least skate a little dirty to try and secure a round 1 win on the 4th or 5th return to a new season. In my opinion, the source of this ambivalence towards approaching the games has more to do with the Berrics and their lack of thought put towards the bracket matchups and the tournament in general. Remember when Seva skated against Jamie in the first round of season 13? If I had to guess, because scheduling non-LA dudes like Luan, Jamie, Levi, and Nick Holt required multiple filming days, the bracket is at the mercy of the roster's availability to be at the Berrics to record a game, which makes sense. But I believe the scheduling problems in this contest is a symptom of an even bigger issue that the Berrics suffered from. They strayed from their original goal of being a training facility to expedite street skateboarding filming missions by leaving their original smaller warehouse that they supposedly owned and rented a bigger facility that made them vulnerable to predatory landlords. And because of that poor decision, the Berrics was overwhelmed with figuring out a way to maintain cash flow, when the bitter irony is they could have simply pivoted to focusing on their flat ground contest, but instead had to treat it as a lucrative ad revenue opportunity that devolved into ham-fisted clickbait efforts like Luan skating against himself and rigged Legion of Doom games, or more sinister efforts like trying to get Jamie eliminated early with insane bracket matchups since he doesn't bring in views. While Berra and Costin's end goal for the Berrics was obviously not aimed at being the face of an official flat ground contest league, it's baffling to see the company fumble the bag so hard on a contest that was still doing decent numbers in season 12, where almost 5 videos have 1 million or more views. These days, SLS is awarding its winners $25,000 for first place, a contest series that is much more dangerous than a game of skate on flat. And the Berrics were handing out $25K for first place 10 years ago.
I took the contest really seriously, but there was $25,000 on the line, and I knew that could change my whole situation.
SLS used to pay winners $150K for first place 15 years ago. There's nothing written or any media documenting that Jamie was paid a single cent after winning the last 2 seasons at the Berrics, which is a shame if true. To watch something so successful crumble to almost nothing is at best a cautionary tale of what not to do as a skateboarding company. I understand it's my biased opinion, but I think the Berrics made 3 major and obvious mistakes that led to their downfall. Renting an indoor skate park in Southern California instead of owning it makes themselves financially vulnerable to the landlord that inevitably priced them out of their own park. Not steering their resources and connections and sponsors within the industry towards their flagship flat ground contest on a more consistent and reliable basis, resulting in making too many different skate video series that took away from being able to sustain a high-profile yet simple contest with a solid cash prize. that could incentivize guys like Trent to care enough not to lose 5 times in a row. And finally, Berra and Costin did not have the necessary experience to lead a company that grew bigger than they could handle, which led to a toxic relationship with their own audience and too many desperate money grabs from unattractive sponsors that damaged their reputation, maybe beyond repair. Steve and Eric's flat ground contest was one of the internet's most exciting and popular skateboarding events. But just like landing a flip trick in a game, success boils down to proper execution. And instead of rolling away gracefully into the sunset, the Berrics unintentionally landed primo.
And you know what? Everyone thinks I'm making like, oh,